All right, welcome everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today for this special session all about reduce, reuse, reopen, sustainable practices to reopening theater, something I know we're all looking forward to. We are here with a fantastic panel, and I am excited for all of you to hear from them. Our panel consists of authors of the task force that created the toolkit. You will learn more about that as we go. So again, thank you for being here. My name is Molly Braverman, she, her, and I am the director of the Broadway Green Alliance. I am coming to you from Philadelphia, which sits on the ancestral lands of the Lenape people who were here for over 10,000 years before European settlers arrived. I also want to note that currently, as of a recent study for US environmental organizations, they are still predominantly white. As I said, a recent study showed that 95% of boards and 88% of staff at major US environmental organizations are white. That is something we are actively working to change within our own organization and must be changed across the board. I finally want to address my own access needs. I want to let you know that I'm accommodating them. I've got my glasses on, I got a glass of water, all set to go, and we welcome and encourage all of you to address your own access needs throughout this presentation. So with all of that, I am honored to welcome our incredible panel. I will let them introduce themselves, and I will just go across my screen, starting with John.
Oops, hi all, John Carrafa. What should I tell them, Molly?
Why don't you share your pronouns and what you do in this industry?
I use all the pronouns. Any pronouns you want to use for me, I'm good with. And I'm a director, choreographer, Broadway. And I also work a lot in film and TV. So now that, since theater's been slow, I've been shifting over in that direction and learning about the processes over there. So I'll talk about that a little bit.
Thank you, John. All right, Austin.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Austin Sora. My pronouns are she, her. I am a dancer, usually based in New York, currently based in Toronto. And I recently toured with the Phantom of the Opera. And while I was on tour, I had the pleasure of being the BGA's green captain during my time there. So that was wonderful. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Austin. And finally, Jim.
Okay, thank you, Molly. Hi, I'm Jim Joseph. I am he, him. I have black curly hair with a little more white than I'd like to admit, and brown skin. Coming to you from Manhattan, the land of the Lenape people. I am a nonprofit arts leader and theater manager for hire right now currently. A theater manager without a theater is a very sad thing, but I've been a proud member of the BGA since 2009, where I was able to serve as a green captain for 27 Broadway productions at Manhattan Theater Club's Friedman Theater.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jim. I'm going to give a little bit of background about who we are and what we do before we dig into the toolkit itself. So many of you may know us, but there are some new faces today, and I'm excited to share the Broadway Green Alliance has a mission to educate, motivate, and inspire the entire theater community and our patrons to adopt environmentally friendlier practices. And you are all participating in that mission by being here today. We were founded back in 2008 when we were publicly launched. We are an ad hoc committee of the Broadway League and a fiscal program of Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And you will recognize one of our panelists in this fabulous photo backstage at Phantom of the Opera. We also have an environmental partner, the Natural Resources Defense Council, and they served as an advisor as well on the toolkit that you are going to see today. I'm gonna start with my favorite cartoon, resonates with me. My desire to be well-informed is currently at odds with my desire to remain sane. I feel that way every time I read the news right now, and I certainly feel that way when I think about the climate crisis. It can feel deeply overwhelming, beyond my personal control, and I understand those feelings if any of you are having them as well. Which is why I'm happy to move into the BGA's 4 core principles, which really break down this overwhelming problem in front of us into hopeful and actionable steps that we can all take together. Principle number 1 of the BGA is it is impossible to be green. There is no perfect environmentalist. They do not exist. Just by existing on this planet, we every day have a carbon footprint that's inherent. We cannot run away from that. So, we make an exception to this rule for Elphaba or Kermit, but beyond that, let go of that aspiration. And all we ask is that you focus on being greener today than you were yesterday. Our next principle is that small actions add up. We did not get to this moment in time, this climate crisis and our global warming, because of just one big bad thing that happened. It took the accumulation of millions of decisions and actions that got us to where we are today. So it's going to take all of us making big and small actions and decisions to reverse that trend and get us out of this crisis. Principle number 3. Climate neutrality is insufficient. So at the BGA, we believe in being climate positive, which means in addition to mitigating our own emissions, working to reduce our environmental footprint, and adapting to the changes at hand, we also must remove legacy carbon from the air. There is so much carbon that has been emitted over time that just going neutral isn't enough, and we actually have to yes and it, and remove carbon from the air and heal our planet simultaneous to changing our own actions. And principle number 3, there is no climate justice without racial justice. As many of you are aware, BIPOC and poor communities are disproportionately impacted by the effects of the climate crisis, and therefore we must work toward a just transition that centers all people and works to create a socially and environmentally better future. So what on earth does this have to do with theater? I can understand that question. Sometimes it feels like we work in a different field. I can say assuredly, I am not a climate scientist, but the beauty is that as theater artists, we have an enormous role to play in this. As you can see here from this photo, I didn't start out as an environmentalist. I started as a stage manager on Backstage here on tour with Wicked. And as a stage manager through the BGA, I learned that I had the power through my job being out on tour to really impact change, both in my company and by sharing outwards the steps we were taking. So theater artists are uniquely equipped to do this. We are storytellers first and foremost. So we're able to tell stories about what's happening. We can create hope. We engender empathy in people. We are creative problem solvers. We work as a team, and we're great at applauding. So when somebody is taking a next step, whether it be small or large, we applaud each other and encourage. And those are all incredibly valuable tools in this critical and urgent fight. So no matter what you do in the theater, no matter your role, if you're in the audience, if you're backstage, on stage, front of house, you have a role to play in this. All right, so it's my pleasure to turn it over to Jim now.
Okay, so why us? Why now? I would add to that, why not? There is no good time to start thinking about the environment because the good time has already been passed. We all are in a position to do our part. As a member of the BGA since 2008, it was an eye-opening experience for the work that I do as a theater manager, as a facilities manager, to see the changes that I can make and the impact that I can have on the facility, and as that stretches out into our community and into our environment, into our world. So there is no such thing as, why not? It should be now. Okay, opportunity. This is an opportunity to redefine our priorities to promote social and environmental well-being. The COVID-19 shutdown has given everybody in the Broadway community an opportunity to sort of step back and reassess our roles in our community, how those roles impact the work that we do, all the touch points that we have in working in this wonderful business. So we took this opportunity as an organization to step back, and it was 22 beautiful theater professionals from all walks of the industry got together over the course of 3 different meetings to develop these tools that we're going to share with you. Again, making lemonade out of lemons. If we were busy with our careers, our shows, and whatever have you, we probably wouldn't have had the bandwidth in order to create something like this. So it was a great opportunity for us to reassess and to move forward. Knowledge. Prioritizing health and safety does not need to come at the expense of the environment. We all had a knee-jerk reaction when COVID hit about, well, we have to do everything we can to sanitize and, no matter what the cost. That's not true. We can have our cake and we can eat it too when it comes to being environmentally safe and sound. There are plenty of practices that we will share with you that will combat COVID, but still remain true to the principles and core values of the BGA. And urgency. To confront the challenges and interconnected crises that our industry faces, from the economic impacts of COVID-19 to systematic racism to climate change. As I said, we can't wait to start this work. So what better time to do it is to do it now.
Where do we start? Should we go to the next slide? The toolkit. Right, we've created the toolkit. I think Jim sort of gave the intro to what the toolkit is, and that it's a living document. We can all add to it. There's links in there and email addresses for anyone to add information. And we're finding this kind of crowdsourcing way of working on this really is very effective because people come up with things all the time that we didn't think of. Okay, so first topic, environmental health and safety. We're going to get into PPE, yes? Go ahead. There we go. So the first point, the point I wanted to make about this is because I've been able to work, film and TV production has been started up, and I've been working on a couple of TV shows. I've been able to see what it's like, the effects of working on the COVID protocols, what those effects have on what we want to do in the Broadway Green Alliance. I have brought a visual aid today. Hopefully you can all see it. This is us waltzing. Can everybody see that? It's on my screen. I'm working on an 1882 period drama show, and we're teaching everyone to waltz. And this protective equipment, while it looks strange, completely forget it's there. We've become completely used to this new way of working. And the point I wanted to make is that, this is the moment when we're creating sort of new protocols for the Broadway Green Alliance or for COVID. As you're creating new systems, we work in the theater and in film and television with routines. Like we sign at the sign-in list. We take an equity 5 every 55 minutes or a 10 every hour 20. And we're used to routines. And, we found in the film productions, as we're creating these new routines, they very quickly become normalized, and you forget that you even ever did it any other way. And I'm sure, when they started doing the equity 5 and the equity 10-minute breaks, at first it was like, oh, this is something new, but now it's just such a part of our routine, and it's how we all work in film and theater and television. So this is the moment for us to establish these new protocols at the same time that we're establishing the COVID protocols. And the interesting thing is, because COVID is so dire and urgent and in the moment, everybody throws the kitchen sink at it. I've got masks and visors all over this rehearsal studio, and there is really very little thought to, are they cornstarch plastic? Are they, and so I just want to make the point is that as we get into starting up again, we're going to notice that there's an overwhelming urge to just throw everything you can and throw out the BG, throw out any environmental issues. It's just everybody's impulse because we're all so nervous about getting sick. Anyway, let's go back to the slide. So much of the PPE produced and provided is single use, and this causes increased waste, threat to wildlife, and the challenge is PPE needs to be worn at appropriate times. So we provide company members with their own set of reusable masks. The reusability and the personalization of all these things becomes sort of a theme in what we're doing. Cleaning, same thing. It's sort of, as we're dealing with the COVID protocols, we have to resist the urge to throw caution to the wind when it comes to the other protocols. And I could just tell you, I see it happening all the time here. You know, you forget, like, we have this urgent issue, and people forget that the way climate change works is, it's over time.
I just want to add here that we did the work of cross-referencing the CDC recommended cleaners with the Green Seal certified and Safer Choice products. So if you go to the toolkit, which is available for free on BroadwayGreen.com, you can pick from that list. So we don't have to throw away, as John's saying, our health and safety in order to make greener choices. And that list is there for you to access.
Yeah, many commercial products are readily available to fulfill these needs, but they're wasteful and not necessarily environmentally friendly. The challenge is increased personal sanitation and hygiene requirements for COVID. And so the solution is install contactless solutions that promote hygiene and eliminate the need for added single-use products. When that's not possible, purchase environmentally friendly options.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to turn it to Austin to take us backstage.
Thank you. So I'm going to just kind of build on what John has established here and just kind of veer into the backstage and run of show section. We kind of identified what were some problems and how we could maybe find some sustainable solutions. So here are a few examples of those. So starting with stage and company management, the call board was a huge source of paper waste that we found, and it's a big opportunity to be able to cut back on that. So our first suggestion was to go digital, to cultivate an opt-out culture for digital communications and scripts. So typically the norm is that everyone gets a hard copy of the script, and if you want a digital copy, you would opt out of the hard copy and just request that. And so we want to flip that norm on its head, and this is our go digital moment, as we like to call it. And we would love for the norm to be for everyone to get a digital copy. And if somebody wanted a hard copy, that they would just request that. So it could still be available, but just not be the norm. And then the same thing goes for all the call board memos and schedules and notices and the forms. So if there would be a virtual call board, a virtual portal, that could be really, really helpful in reducing the paper waste. Thank you, Molly. All right, performers and musicians. So our first recommendation in this section was to green the pit. Install LED lighting in the pit lights and use digital music scores. So that's going to cut back again on the paper waste and also the electricity consumption. The second point here is to distribute personal bins for all company members to contain reusable items such as bottles, cutlery, dishware, and other items. So as John was saying, this is kind of a theme throughout the presentation, that the more reusable we can use, the better, the more, and have it be personal. So I saw firsthand when I was on tour, the amount of single-use plastics that we would go through, being in a new city all the time, you're just constantly ordering takeout, getting single-use containers and cutlery, and it's just really, really wasteful. So I adopted the habit of traveling with my own Tupperware and my own cutlery and everything, and I would wash it in my hotel room sink. And it was such a small change in my day-to-day habits, and it really reduced the amount of waste that I was producing. And I noticed, like, my hotel garbage didn't have to be taken out as often, and it was something that I really noticed. And I'm just one person, so the more that we can do this, the more impact we're going to have. The third point on here is to skip stocking the green room with single-use supplies and instead provide each company member with their own set of reusable supplies for which they're responsible. So again, the same kind of idea. Molly had a great example that came from a regional theater where they were on a tight budget, and so they asked audience members to donate their unwanted mugs and glasses, and the audience participated, and they were able to stock the green room fully. So that was a really great example from that Molly shared. So thank you. And then Jim, I think you had a story about that as well, about stocking the green room.
Absolutely. When I was at the Friedman Theater with Manhattan Theater Club, we went through the same process of trying to stock the green room with mugs. So I made a plea to the administrative staff and asked anybody to bring in any unused mugs, cutlery, plates that they had, and we were able to stock the green room that way.
I love that. That's amazing. Molly, was your experience similar? Like, how did you address the audience with that?
Absolutely. It was a really fun engagement moment too, because we were able to share that we were looking to make the sustainable choice with our audience. So using our communication tools to do it. And then they were able to feel a part of our action and like they were assisting the production in addition to keeping their own unwanted mugs and plates out of the landfill. I know we can all probably relate to having just that extra mug lying around we don't want anymore. So can go to a good purpose and be part of a moment where you share with your audiences your intentions as well.
Yeah, that's great. It's a win-win. And I think that it's another way for audiences to feel a part of the show, and feel connected with it. So I really, really love that. And it's great that you have an example that you can say this works. So it's not just an idea, it's actually something that you've done in the past. So I love that. All right, you can go to the next slide, please. All right, so we've got scenic, props, and production management. So the first point is to create a sustainable pre and post-production plan. And Molly also shared about to this point that if you create a green strike plan at strike, it's too late. So this is something that takes planning ahead of time. It doesn't have to be a huge inconvenience, but it definitely is something that should be thought about in advance. If you're unable to store, reuse, or repurpose set pieces and props, consider donating them to schools or community groups. There are so many other uses for these props, and it's there's always going to be someone looking for what you're trying to get rid of. So if there's a way that you can find if there's a way to be able to work that into your plan, then it's only going to help. The next point, look for FSC or SFI certification on lumber and paper, which ensures fiber came from sustainably managed forest or sources. So these two certifications are kind of the gold standard in lumber and sustainable forest management, and just ensures that it came from a sustainably, that they're sustainably resourced. So it's that the little logo with the trees. You'd probably recognize it. It's pretty cute. All right, consider miming props in the rehearsal room rather than creating rehearsal props, which again just cuts back on waste. And then cleaning props, it's better to spray with a disinfectant as opposed to utilizing the disposable wipes, again, just cutting back on waste. And then the last point on here is storing prop food and other perishables in glass Tupperware or reusable containers. When you're storing food in Ziploc bags, especially if it's something that is getting changed every single show, it's a lot of Ziploc bags being thrown away, or it's just something that really adds up every night. So the more that we can use reusable containers, the better. And also this so wisely states that specifically glass Tupperware is better than plastic. So where possible, that's just another note. So, all right. Thanks, Molly.
Thank you. All right, we're going to turn it back to John to take us into lighting and sound.
Lighting and sound. The use of LED fixtures saves on energy usage. And I think, Molly, wasn't one of the first kind of fun wins for the BGA was to get the marquee lights changed?
That's correct, yeah.
On Broadway. And it seems like it's not, it's, tech folks love to try new tech and to figure out new ways of solving problems with tech. So it always feels like it's a welcome addition when we throw these ideas at them.
Right.
So
actually, John, if I could chime in with that, that was my actual introduction to the BGA. When I started working at the Friedman, I was welcomed with an email from Jennifer Hershey, who's one of the founders of the BGA, with an entire breakdown of the fact that the Friedman was one of the last theaters not to change their bulbs, marquee bulbs, to the LEDs, had sourced the bulbs for me already and priced them out. So I literally, my desk chair wasn't even warm yet, and I had this email from her. So with that information, I was able to make the case to MTC about the cost effectiveness of changing over the LEDs, because this was in the middle of the financial crisis. So there was a cash outlay in order to do the change, but we made up that money and saved money in subsequent years. And it took about 1.5 years to make up the difference in the savings.
Amazing. That's great. Thanks, Jim. That's incredible. Yeah, and once you do LED lights in one spot, people are like, oh, we can do LED lights over here too. Don't forget Backstage. Look to LEDs for dressing rooms, mirror lighting, work lights, house lighting. We have a lot of lights in the theater. Limit battery purchases of non-rechargeable batteries, and instead, use recharge stations and begin the process of having rechargeable batteries for mics and mic packs and headlamps. Does this address, we were talking about backstage lights, Molly, wardrobe lights not being the kind that you
Yep.
put in your mouth anymore. Do you want to tell them about that?
Sure, it's on the next slide, actually. We can.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay, sorry, that's wardrobe. Sorry, right. When possible, reduce the sharing of microphones to avoid the waste involved in sanitizing and changing out windscreens. Again, that's a theme. Everybody gets their own ... Everybody gets their own spot in the rehearsal room where they put their things. Everybody gets their own props. Wardrobe, hair, makeup, use eco-friendly detergent and when possible, wash using cold water. Instead of using disposable bite-like backstage lights, bite lights backstage for quick changes, provide USB rechargeable headlamps or USB rechargeable neck lights, which do not come into contact with the user's mouth. Promote the process of recycling worn costume pieces, fabric scraps, and leftover yardage. And that also comes into the loadout, correct, of costumes. And recycle personal care and beauty items through specialty recycling programs such as TerraCycle. The other interesting thing we're dealing with here is that nobody wears anybody else's costume. There's a lot of no trading off on items, even like rehearsal skirts, or we have some masks in this production, and everybody has their own masks. So yeah, anyway, okay.
I just want to add in quickly here. Again, we've done the work for you. So we've taken a look at the detergents that are out there that are eco-friendly, pared them down to remove all of those scented ones that we do not use in the theater. And that list is available that you can click right through in the toolkit. Same is true if you're interested in these USB headlamps. We've linked to products. So it's all there for you to take a look at. All right. And now we're going to turn it back to Jim.
Okay, thank you, Molly. We can move to the next slide. All right, continuing in the vein of what we can do and how we can fix it. Cups and water bottles. With the COVID pandemic that we're in right now, the increase in single consumption plastic has grown 250 to 300%. Now, we understand the why, but that doesn't mean it has to be that way. Utilizing reusable items, along with basic hygiene practices, are proven to be a safe battle, towards COVID-19. There are water bottles that you can buy that actually come with filters as well. So if you're worried about getting your filtered water, as opposed to pitchers of filtered water as well. So there are definitely options, as opposed to the single-use water bottles. Where we source our water from. Again, there's concern about shared water sources, which is why people were going to the single-use bottles. There are definitely options that are available. Contactless water sources is definitely an option. Having piped in water fountains and water servers is definitely more commonplace than it was a couple of years ago. So these are definitely options as well. Okay, cutlery, it's the same thing. The huge concern about single-use cutlery. We don't know where it's been, how it's being stored, and the individual packaging of the single-use cutlery just creates more waste for our landfills. Reusable utensils is always the way to go. Personal sets, as was mentioned earlier, whether they're metal or even bamboo. I have a great bamboo set of cutlery that's branded from the BGA. Thank you very much. I still use it. All right, next slide. Right, and finally, food and beverage. It's the same thing. We work in an industry where there's an excuse, whenever there's an excuse to feed the crew, have food at meetings. It's sort of an industry standard. And I remember a boss of mine saying once, there's a certain cost to doing business. If you're having a meeting with a big time director, there's certain expectations of hospitality. The hospitality that's offered can be reimagined and just moved into a greener situation. sourcing from local food supplies, as opposed to getting things shipped via Amazon or things of that nature, for sure. Single-use packaging, definitely an issue, but we could just encourage company members to bring their food with them in their glass reusable Tupperwares, to reduce the waste as well, and maybe there could be reimbursement programs for things like that. The money that would normally be spent, on these catered meals. Okay.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes our run through the toolkit. There, as I've mentioned before, there's so much more in the written toolkit. There are links, and as we mentioned at the beginning, this is a living document. It will be most successful through feedback from all of you, especially as we start to head back into theaters. What's working, what is missing, what doesn't. This is a dialogue in order to make the best actions possible for our community. And it doesn't stop there. There are more ways to get involved with the BGA and with the sustainable theater movement. And one of our main programs is our Green Captain program. And I'm going to let a Green Captain tell us about it.
Yeah, so I perked up a little bit when I saw this slide on here because I love the Green Captain program. I think it's so impactful. So bravo for creating it. So the Green Captain program, for people who aren't familiar, is a network of Broadway Green Alliance advocates who spearhead green initiatives, whether it's at their company, their show, their theater, or their school, their union. There's so many different ways to get involved. It looks different for everybody. When I was the Green Captain on Phantom, one of the biggest initiatives that I kind of took on was composting. And so in every city, I would look ahead of time to see where the compost drop-offs were. If it was convenient, I would tell the people in the company. If it was less convenient, I would collect the food at the end of the run and take it over there to drop it off. I also spearheaded a plastic shopping bag collection and dropped it off one day. So just little projects here and there that everyone kind of got on board with. So that was really neat to be a part of. And the Green Captain program has 100% participation on Broadway. And Molly shared that it's been like that for quite a few years now, which is incredible. There's also Green Captains, like I mentioned, for other theaters like off-Broadway theaters, touring companies, and regional theaters, as well as colleges. So it's a really neat program. And again, it looks different for everybody. So you can really customize it to whatever you want to do, however you want to make your impact. So if you are interested in getting involved, you can head over to their website for more information.
Okay.
And then finally, another way to kind of get involved and spread the word is to use your voice and your art. So it's a really incredible thing to take steps to make your own life more sustainable. And we would just like to encourage you to share all the great things that you're doing, whether it be through your art, through social media, or just in day-to-day conversations that you're having with other people. When I was a Green Captain, I loved to, if I was doing a compost drop-off, I would post it on Instagram and just kind of share what I was doing. And people responded really well to it. And I think it just brings awareness to the issues. And it also shows that you can take little steps towards being more sustainable, and it doesn't have to be a huge lifestyle change all at once. And I think that a lot of people are intimidated by that. So the more that you can share, I'm incorporating this small habit or that small habit, then I think it just encourages other people to participate and to help combat the climate crisis. So yeah, the more you can spread the word, the better. And here is a great example of someone who is using their voice from somebody that you will recognize.
Hey everybody, Seth Stewart, Lin Man with Hamilton. I'm the Green Captain for Broadway Green Alliance, giving you a special Ham for Ham. This is for Earth Day. We're gonna make history, save the planet, and do better things for the theater, for the world. Green.
Green, I'm like green, it needs to be green, but you know what I mean. I'm on the scene and I'm trying to save the earth one day at a time. Oh yeah, when I lay down these rhymes. Revolution, the revolution isn't American, is global. I know I'm vocal. My vocal cords are always tired. That's alright, cause I'm not
Earth Day.
fired. Yeah, it's Earth Day. Yeah, it's not my birthday, but we sip recyclable cups when we're thirsty. Oh yeah, and we use rechargeable batteries, and I say these things like all
Hamilton.
degrees. Oh yeah, Hamilton, we're trying to start the revolution slowly, like, cause it is Earth Day, like, so we try to conserve and reuse and reduce and recycle. And this is my title. I
Ham for
ain't
ham.
giving it away. This is the ham for ham. Oh damn, oh man, I can't believe I just slammed a man half a gram. And no, I'm not in Amsterdam, but every paragraph
Broadway
I am
green.
Broadway green, trying to save your life, trying to save the life of my kids and Sebastian, going faster cause it's spinning and turning. Yeah, we gotta stop the world from burning. Good luck with the lotto.
All right. Thank you for that. I'm going to now stop our screen share. We are at the end of our formal presentation, and it is our pleasure now to open up to the group. Anyone who's comfortable, please turn your video on, and we will open up to questions. Feel free to raise your hand visually, and I'll give you a call on or put a question in the chat. Yes, Helen.
Hi, my name is Helen McClay. I use she and they pronouns. I'm a costumer in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I was curious, your point of contact for both the hygiene as well as the NRDC, how did you establish those like bonds and relationships for us if I want to be like, hey guys, here's this thing, and they'll be like, okay, what's the credibility of like, how do you know this? Because it's really easy for people to say like, no, there's no evidence. So who can we point to for that?
Charlie, you want to share that?
No, well, so we established a relationship with the NRDC from the beginning, and they adopted a mission with us of having us not look like fools, which we don't want anybody out on a limb on this. We don't want to make claims that aren't true. So we, not as a group of theater people, not environmental experts, go and vet the new products with them. They have over the years vetted claims of many, many products. So the thing I'd invite is to use us as a resource, and we'll hook you up. There is a great network of people around the world working on this issue. So often we feel alone in it. But the reality is there are lots and lots of people doing it. And Molly and Chrissy are in touch with them all the time. So I would invite you to start by sending something to Molly. If you have the question about it, other people will have it. And that way we can get us hooked up with somebody who can give definitive answers, and then let that opportunity be known by lots of people around the world.
Awesome, thank you.
I'll also add in that in the written toolkit, there are a lot of sources cited, so that again, none of these claims were ones that we just felt. They are researched. So if you're looking to make the case to others around you, please feel free to use that research that's there. It's all linked for you, and there's some great sources of some amazing scientists and other folks doing this work.
Fantastic, thank you.
I was going to say the same thing, Molly. The NRDC website is the place I go when people confront me with one or another climate denier claims, and I feel like I have a bit of a little bit of a ammunition to be able to discuss things with people, because their site gives you so much of the real data.
Great. I see some questions in the chat I'm going to pull to. Great. So Bailey asked the question about plant-based food options. So that is a great option. It's not in the toolkit, as we were just looking to really specifically address what the COVID challenges presented versus taking an overall look. But that's the reason it wasn't specifically in there. But that is an incredible option, as we certainly look, as Jim was talking about, reimagining hospitality in our industry. What are our more sustainable options, such as local sources and things like that we can implement. Great point. All right. I am reading. So I see Eva, I hope I'm getting that, is internet sound, but that's fabulous that you are a PhD candidate in performing arts and environmental sustainability. We are seeing more and more of that these days. And so props to you for studying that intersection. And I'm really excited to connect. I see that you've got lots more to share, and I look forward to connecting about that. As we mentioned, this is an open source toolkit, so thank you for reaching out, and we look forward to more. Susan, can I put you on the spot for a moment to share what it was like to use a virtual portal at Wicked? Oh, we might have lost Susan. All right, well, I will share a little bit about that then. At Wicked and at many shows actually on Broadway and in the regional space have already made that transition to virtual portals, which I think is really exciting because most of us aren't carrying around pieces of paper with a city sheet or things like that on them anymore. And so it was a really exciting opportunity to make those more accessible and certainly more sustainable. Austin, on tour, did you guys have any virtual forms that you used?
No, we haven't at all. They were all paper forms, which is why I was so excited about the idea of using a virtual portal. When I pictured the call board, it was just like schedules covered in papers and then just like stacks of forms being hung. And it's so not necessary, especially in 2021. So I think it would be so helpful.
That's great. And
Yeah, I know, and most of Broadway, if not all of Broadway, has definitely moved to digital portals for house seats. No, absolutely for house seat requests, managing those. When I started, there was a big binder fold with lots of pages and 3-copy notepads that needed to be filled out, and so I'm glad to see all that waste has gone away now.
We've had a bunch of green captains talking about how somebody from Local 1 would tease them unmercifully about the recycling and other practices. And then over the course of time, all of a sudden, those same people were adopting many of the greener practices. Did you see some of the skeptics or teasers change over time?
Yeah, you know what? Now that you bring that up, there was one person in particular who comes to mind who every time I would send out the email or saying, okay, everyone, I'm collecting the food, he would always give me a hard time and say, oh, I'm going to go and like burn it all, or, oh, I'm going to do, and he always it was always this just kind of negative response. And a couple cities down the road, he showed up one day and handed me his bag of food. And so yeah, it absolutely, I think just slowly people will kind of come through, but that was a big win for sure. And then of course the next city, he still gave me a hard time, but he brought his compost and he said, don't tell anybody.
That's great. Jim?
Can I add to that? Sorry. Oh, go ahead, Jim. Just to add to that, there is a little bit of a sense of like, really, you're going to talk about Broadway green stuff right now when we're dealing with, and so I just keep reemphasizing the point that it's in this inflection point as we're transitioning to the new normal. If the new normal is going to be incorporating the greener practices, then they'll just become part of the routine. And once we sort of find ourselves sort of in what the new normal is, because it's starting to feel like we're going to have masks for a while, we're going to be doing these practices for a while, it's going to be harder to incorporate them. So, there's a moment I can feel it when we're here that to bring that up right now, it's like that's the last, there's a little resistance to it because we have a more immediate threat in everyone's mind.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Jim, what has your experience been?
Well, I think just like anything, change takes time. And I am encouraged by the growth of the Green Captain program on college campuses, which means, we've been doing this for over 10 years now. So there's a generation now of theater professionals who have come up in college already knowing about the idea of having a Green Captain and knowing what the Broadway Green Alliance is. So we are going to slowly but surely stop being the outliers, the crazy green folks, and this is sort of just becomes just part of the process as we move further and further into it. So I'm encouraged by the progress that we make and the progress that we will continue to make.
Absolutely.
Just I saw in a comment in the chat about Local 1. We've had great leadership on environmental matters from Local 1 from the very founding of this, and some great initiatives that Molly's deeply involved with lately as well. So there was a specific story that I was thinking of then. Local One's great partner in all of this work.
We actually have, I don't know, Bridget, if you're available, we have a Local One member on this call right now who is part of this toolkit. Bridget, I would love to hear from you and your experience.
Hi, so sorry, can you hear me? I'm on these funny headphones. Sorry, I was not sitting right in front of the screen, so I apologize. Yeah, so I mean, it's fun. We actually had a Local One Green Committee meeting on Monday for the first time in quite a while. And I was plugging the toolkit. A couple folks are on from the Green Committee. But yeah, so I think it's like a great foundation, and you know, it's there's so much in there, like, you know, come up with a pre-production plan. Like that's like a, you know, it's like a whole workbook on itself. But yeah, I think that there's a, you know, there's a buy-in, you know, that has to be sold. And I agree with John and, you know, Molly, we talked about this as we started this process, that like, you know, we're resetting the new normal anyway, so we might as well just make that new normal a green normal. You know, like there's, you know, everything's going to be different, so why not just like take the opportunity? So so I think that's, you know, where we all stand. And yeah, it's a lot of the changes that we would have to make are not really on a day-to-day basis that large. The big projects are, yeah, how do we really deal with large production waste and whatnot? And I think that's like something we're excited to start working on separately. But I think there were some, you know, some great ideas, and I'm excited to continue. Something that's come up with the Local One Green Committee in the past that we've talked about with Molly over the last year is having a House Local One person be a partner green captain, so that not only there will be a show green captain, but there will be a venue green captain, so that, you know, when the show leaves and in between when they leave and when they come back, that there'll still be somebody, like, you know, for loadings and loadouts, when a lot of that waste happens, will be available to partner on that. So is there any other burning thoughts about Local One's involvement that you
No, I'm really glad you brought up the Green Committee, which is an exciting committee working on that. And I'm really excited to get that new Green Captain partnership in place once we get back into our theaters. It's going to be really instrumental in moving us forward.
Yeah, and I hope, my green dream is to kind of mirror the film productions development of a toolkit, something like the Peach, so that and you know, I might ask for Faraway Green Alliance to help facilitate this, but something that we can actually have like a workbook to check off a list and say, like, what are the green practices, and, you know, here, you know, the green captain per venue can actually have something to look at and say, you know, here's, you know, here are the green practices in the props department, you know, like, is this happening? We get a point for each one or whatever. So
I love that. That's great. Let's keep the brainstorming going. So that's fabulous. I do see another question in the chat from Joanne asking about ticketing being addressed. So this was specifically a look backstage. You'll notice we didn't touch on front of house intentionally, as that's another huge slice of the pie. I'll just see, I don't know, Jim, as our venues person here, if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, we all know one of the big wastes are the playbills, and it's also one of the most cherished items for our audience. So it's a conundrum. People tend to forget that Playbill is a magazine that is funded by advertisers. So the idea of Playbills not being in the audience's hand and eyes on those ads doesn't make the advertisers happy. So it's a battle. There isn't a solution yet, but it's something that we're continually talking about. But that's one of the reasons why it's still there. In terms of ticketing, it's the same thing. There are a lot of smaller ticket packages that are moving to total digital ticketing. I think Telecharge has made some great strides in e-tickets. It's a lot easier now to show up and just flash your phone, and the scanners will scan the QR code off of the phone. But just like anything, there are people who love having the ticket in their hand, and that ticket is special to them. And for some people that won't change, but that doesn't mean we don't stop trying to push it through in the industry.
Thank you. And I see Bailey asking questions about opt-in for Playbills or eco-friendly paper. I think all of those are great ideas. Playbill is a company, so it is more challenging, but I would love to point out, looking to the regional and the off-Broadway space where a lot of that has started to happen. There are negotiations happening with the unions, with Actors Equity, with folks who are, we want to acknowledge people and make sure that gets in the hands of our patrons. And so it's exciting to look to some of those other communities where this is really starting to happen.
Right. Yeah. So some of the labor law language for the various unions doesn't account for the digital age or the green age. As we all know, when there's an understudy that goes on, Actors Equity requires 2 out of 3 methods of alerting the audience: a piece of paper that goes into the playbill, a sign that's hung in the lobby, or an announcement. So 2 of those 3 ways is adding waste. So that is an issue on a higher level, as opposed to a higher pay grade than I have currently, to work towards changing those requirements.
Great. And I'd love to shout out the stage managers who've begun to print multiple changes day of on one slip of paper, as opposed to, if you remember, sometimes you open your playbill and like 27 things fall out. So condensing that is a great first step, and putting that on that recycled paper is a really
Absolutely. In the past, Playbill would print out the understudy slips, and you would get them packaged in plastic wrap. And if you were doing a limited run show, like a lot of the productions I did at Manhattan Theater Club, you could actually do 16 weeks of a show and not have an understudy go on. So now you're stuck with a large amount of these understudy slips. So we actually got rid of that, and I just made sure that I had PDFs on hand whenever an understudy went on, and we photocopied them ourselves, or we printed them, cut them ourselves.
I also wanted to just shout out to the BGA, because I know that you guys will take those understudy slips and make notepads out of them, and that I think that's a really great way to repurpose them, and just so instead of just throwing them away, they get a second life. So I think that's a really great idea.
Great, thank you. Yep, innovation.
Someone was asking about QR codes. Did I miss that? Did you address that one?
No, please go ahead. Let's address that, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, I'm not the best to address that. I actually asked the same question a while ago, and I can't remember what you told me.
Great. So I personally, as a stage manager, have not yet worked with QR codes, but I know that there are stage managers, company managers out there who have. I don't know if anyone in this audience has done that yet. Looking for hands, or maybe you'll throw in the chat while I wrap up if you have experience with that. If not, it's a new frontier, and I'm really excited for folks to try it and report back, and we can report out some case studies from there. Great.
We are using them on the film set, on TV sets. Every morning, you scan a QR code and answer a couple of questions about whether you're taking your temperature, whether you were around somebody who was sick. But it's pretty simple. You put, boom, you're done. So
fabulous. Thank you. And there is a link for how to create those for free in the toolkit. So I am really excited for someone on this video to give it a whirl and let us know. And with that, we are at time. I'm a stage manager. I can't let us go over. Equity will come for me. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us on this presentation. A huge thank you to Jim, John, and Austin for presenting today. It was an honor to have your words and you as a part of this. Please keep in touch. Again, you can find our toolkit available on BroadwayGreen.com. We look forward to hearing how you give it a whirl, how it goes. And we will be back with the Green Quarantine next month. with the NRDC, followed by another one with the Waterfront Alliance about how advocacy can work in April. So thank you again, and we hope to see you back here soon.